crowd as well. So thanks to all of you who also made the trek out to EDC. If you don't live on campus, we're most happy to have you here. So fairly quickly, I'm just going to tell you guys a little bit more about IdeasXChange before we go on into the workshop with our three amazing workshop facilitators over here. For those of you that joined us last year, we used to be called Alice Perspective, but since June, we renamed ourselves as IdeasXChange. So just a quick little recap there. Now, we're made up of UBC students, alumni, work professionals, and people who care about today's socioeconomic and environmental issues. That's the main premise of IdeasXChange, and that's the main membership which we're comprised of. IdeasXChange is comprised of two aspects. That's the IdeasXChange Hub and the online magazine. So the IdeasXChange Hub is, we host events such as this one, workshops, panel discussions, and events that touch on social, economic, and environmental themes with a solutions-oriented approach. And then there's the online magazine, which we launched a few months ago, that touches on current events, science, sustainability, business, among others. And it's comprised of 7 contributing writers as of now. The way that we support ourselves is thanks to UBC grants, we've been able to host this event since 2015 and now onto this year. And also by collaborating with a number of student clubs across campus and by engaging with the community along with students, academia, and working professionals. As I was saying, so last year we were lucky to have been granted the UBC Connected Community Grant along with the Leo Art Community Fund. And this year our events are taking place thanks to the UBC Global Fund, which is given through the UBC Global Lounge, along with the Leo IR Community Fund, which is one of the reasons why we have the privilege of being in this beautiful building tonight. So from in 2015, we hosted these events over here, as you can see. They're very diverse. They're all touching social, economic, and environmental themes, as I was saying. But they're all interconnected, and that's because we believe that the issues of our times need a holistic perspective if we are to address them in an effective way. So those are just some examples of 2015. For this year, as you can tell, we have a few events. We had our launch welcome event just 2 weeks ago. And for this week, Building Sustainable and Resilient Communities, it's got the longest title, so you should feel special. At least I think so. Moving on to these are the other 3 events that we have for this year. So we'll send you more information after the event is over, and I will also send you an email to follow up. We would love to see you come out in the future. Now, our events wouldn't take place, they wouldn't be possible were it not for the knowledge experts, as you can see here today. Here in the front, the knowledge experts are comprised of community leaders, policymakers, food security and international development experts. These are just some of the people that have joined us in the past. 2015, we were lucky to have 28 panelists, knowledge experts come out and join us, and it's through their knowledge and their wisdom that we're able to have such good and holistic conversations as we will do today. And in a minute, we'll introduce our knowledge experts here today. So these are just some of the pictures from our previous events. But one of the things that stands out from IdeasXChange is that we have a big focus on collaborative learning. We believe that the best learning takes place in groups, and that's why we do our best to foster an environment in which ideas can be exchanged, hence our name, and it wouldn't be possible were it not for the facilitators such as here today. So thanks to the 3 of you for being here today. Just really quickly before I finish, why do we do this? The issues of our times are unprecedented. As you can see here, whether it's climate change, rising inequality, social ills such as war and conflict. This will all only be solved if we are to address them from an interdisciplinary perspective, and if we are to bring people together from different disciplines and different backgrounds to look at these issues from a critical perspective and through a solutions-oriented approach. That's the main premise as to why we do this. As I was saying really quickly, we also have our online magazine, though, which touches on these same issues, and we try to bring much insight into many of the world's current events, along with a critical analysis of some of the socioeconomic and environmental issues that we want to tackle. This is a bit, if you're interested in volunteering, just come and talk to us. We have a number of openings, whether it's through the IdeasXChange Hub or through the online magazine, so that's just something to keep in mind if you like our event. Now, for workshop facilitators, now I'll pass it on to the three of you. We have Maria Trujillo, Aaron Lau, and Emme Ann Lee, who are going to be facilitating the entire discussion for today. They're all UBC grad students from the School of Community and Regional Planning. So I'll let you all take the lead now and to introduce our knowledge experts and let you take the lead. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
So we'll actually frame the event first, and then we'll introduce you guys. But how can we build communities that are sustainable and resilient? In other words, how do we achieve healthy communities that promote a sense of belonging, collaboration, and happiness? We all have a pretty good idea of what we want to see happening in our neighborhoods. As community planners, we have realized that really, though, you're all planners yourselves. You have ideas of what you want to see happening and how your community can be better. So this is your chance to get creative and engage in some planning. We invite you to engage with your fellow neighbors in coming up with ideas to engage in activities in your community that are either creative interventions or, for example, there's a bus stop that could use some love and maybe you can do some art at that bus stop potentially. So just get creative, get thinking, and our knowledge experts will guide you along the way of what it means to work in community, essentially. Perfect.
So as Maria described, we're going for a different kind of format for our panel here today. You know, we were thinking about IdeasXChange and what they are going for in terms of this collaborative learning. We're talking about this topic of connected and very social communities and how that's a core building block of a better world. And so we wanted to have a session that wasn't just, you know, here are three panelists, they're going to talk at you for an hour, right? We're going to have you, as you can see, in these table groups, and what we're going to be doing is thinking of ways we can spark, you know, discussion and implementation of ideas for better communities in our own neighborhoods. And so we'll explain this more later, but our goal here is about, you know, taking the step to say what things can be done where I live. And we're hopefully going to have our knowledge experts here to help us spark inspiration as to things that we can do and things that we can, you know, start after today. I think, you know, IdeasXChange is going after some really big themes of, you know, economic equality and connection and war and climate change. But it all starts at the local level, so that's what we want to do here today, is just spark that first piece of inspiration. And so we have, like mentioned, three key experts here that are going to be talking to us about their expertise. We're going to start with three short introductions from each of our panelists, and then we're going to go into the rest of the session. So to introduce our first panelist, I'm going to have Maria come back up.
So in the middle is Ross Moster, and Ross has an extensive background in small business, cooperative, social and environmental activism, and sustainable community building. He founded Village Vancouver and is a member of the Car-Free Vancouver, now BC Co-op, and Vancouver's Food Policy Council. He is involved with Vancouver's Peak Oil Executive and the West Side Food Security Collaborative and Langara's College Summer School of Building Community. Ross is particularly passionate about fostering collaboration by creating neighborhood villages and neighborhood food growing networks. Ross served as GM of an organic food co-op for 20 years. He now lives in Vancouver with his wife, Laura Lee.
Great, and I'm going to be introducing Ericka. So Ericka Rennie is with Cohousing Vancouver, and that's actually very exciting for me as a planner because Cohousing Vancouver is the first of its kind of housing institution in our city. It's different from co-op housing, just throw that out there. And so Ericka was one of the co-founders of this first co-housing community in Vancouver, which is scheduled to be complete in 2016. If you have ever driven down 33rd Avenue, it's near Knight Street, I believe. There's a new building going up, and it's a very exciting format that they have, so Ericka will talk more about that. But she's an innovative operations manager who has passion for community-driven housing solutions that are open to everybody of every income level. Ericka's work with Vancouver Cohousing, which is a $15 million project, involves providing leadership to the company and its dozens of shareholders, and also translating difficult technical matters into simple language. Ericka studied at UNBC for her BA in political science and also received an MA in political science from U of T. So I'm sure her experience with co-housing is going to be very relevant to creating these kind of new innovations that we're looking for in our communities.
And finally, we'd like to welcome Elvy del Bianco on your left, or my right. Elvy is a program manager for cooperative partnerships with Vancity Credit Union. He brings in many years of expertise in the areas of local and community development through decades working as a policy analyst for many different government projects and as an independent consultant. He's a staunch believer in the power of cooperatives and has done work to create a network of cooperatives able to effectively share expertise and disperse aid where needed. Elvy's formal education includes a BA in political science and economics from Simon Fraser University and a diploma in classical theatre from the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts. Please help me welcome all three of our panelists today.
And we're going to start with quick presentations from each of our panelists, just short ones, just to give you an idea of the work that they do. So can we have Ross begin?
Sure, thank you. I should mention it's about a 5-year-old bio, so some of those are past engagements. I'm a food policy council any longer and some of those other things. But I work, I do spend all my time doing community development. I primarily work with Village Vancouver, which is an organization that I started about 8 or 9 years ago. Village is part of what's called the transition movement, or the transition town movement, which is something that started in England about 10 years ago. And the big words that we apply to transition towns are basically like grassroots solutions to things like climate change or peaking resources or increasing economic inequality. But what it boils down to with many transition town initiatives, of which we are the one for Vancouver, is we really spend a lot of time connecting neighbors and community. And so our approach is we focus on a lot of different levels. We do a lot of citywide stuff. For instance, tonight we're partnering with Amnesty International and CODEV Canada. We have the opening of the Just Film Festival at Vancity Theatre. So after this, I'm going down there to catch the second film. So we do that kind of citywide stuff, but a lot of what we do is on a very basic level of connecting neighbors to one another. Our focus, once you get beyond all the big words and stuff, our focus is really on creating community resilience. And we do that in a way, we feel like there's amazing resources in our neighborhoods, tons of knowledge, skills, assets, but if we don't know our neighbors, we can't take advantage of that. As a result, we tend to waste these resources. We're always kind of looking off in the distance for experts to solve our problems, and sometimes that's a good place to look, but lots of times we can come up with creative solutions in our own neighborhoods. So we're largely people-powered. We like to say we're not adverse to money, but our existence is not predicated on having lots of money to do stuff. We're entirely volunteer-driven. We're extremely active in this pursuit of community resilience. We literally do over 300 activities a year. We have over 3,000 people on our website, and it's an interactive website, so you can join the website. You can post your own events, you can blog, that kind of thing, and you can use it as a way to connect with other people in your neighborhoods. And then we do a lot of stuff around food. So one of the ways we bring people together are around various kinds of community meals. One of our favorites are called drop-in spaghetti nights, where we will, a neighbor will host a meal for maybe 10 people in their neighborhood, who they probably don't know, most of them, and these are people that might live within 2 or 3 blocks of one another. So we bring them together maybe once or twice and get them talking to one another and sharing food. So that's an example of how to foster resources on a grassroots level. It doesn't cost very much money, just the cost of the food. We run similar things like this, where we call them how to create a village in a city, or imagining the possibilities, or imagining your ideal neighborhood, where we just bring people together to envision what they'd like to see their neighborhood look like. And you're going to find, I think it's going to be totally amazing when you realize how many resources you have in your neighborhoods. So that's kind of the level that we operate on. We have found that when people come together, maybe the first time they don't know each other very well, but when they come together more and more, it becomes easier and easier to engage in projects on a neighborhood level. So if we had a mantra, it would kind of be like, talk to your neighbors and see what happens. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I think already some really great tips. Ericka, can we hear about your co-housing experience?
Yeah, can you all hear me? I have bronchitis, so I'll try to project, but you're good? Okay. Is that better? People at the back? Mike? Perfect. If that works, that's really great. Is that good? Okay. So I was asked to kind of talk about the importance and benefits of close-knit community and how an intentionally designed physical space can support those interactions. So I've kind of focused a few thoughts on that, and as part of trying to keep this short, I've kind of left aside the question of how we engaged in consultations and talking with the neighbors who are sort of more broader than our co-housing community. So if that's something that's of interest to you, I'll happily pick that up kind of after when we're at tables. So I guess to start off, I'll just tell you that Vancouver Cohousing is simultaneously a development company, a group of shareholder investors who self-finance the Vancouver Cohousing project, as well as a community of future residents who will be living there sometime, hopefully later this month, if all goes well with our occupancy permit later this week. So cohousing is an idea first championed by architects and community-minded people in Denmark. It's spread later through Scandinavia. The idea basically is that a small group of residents get together, they get to know each other, and they co-design common amenities that can better facilitate a group life together. In Vancouver, we know that loneliness is one of the big challenges in our city, and so co-housings in a northern country is one of their answers to that problem. We found personally in Vancouver co-housing, and lots of other co-housing communities have found as well, that when you plan and build large common amenities together, you upsize not only your community life and those physical amenities, but you necessarily downsize your private amenities. So you build your own sharing economy, you then have the ability to access that sharing economy on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, and to offer that sharing economy to the broader neighborhood as well. So we're really looking forward to doing that. We've also heard anecdotally from various people living in co-housing communities around the world that when you have such access to common amenities, you're upsizing many of the intangibles. So it's not just a lack of loneliness because you know all your neighbors and you're engaging with them because your physical space supports the engagement in them on a sort of a daily, very regular basis. But it's that it's easier to pack lunches for your family when a group of moms and dads can get together and pack everyone's lunches for the whole week. And you do it once a night. So the routine that we all do, in our own individual homes, you can think about ways about how we could do that together as a community, how we could then free up more of our time, which is really our greatest asset, to spend it in different ways. So I mentioned that the idea was first started in Denmark, was brought to North America in the 70s and 80s, and in the 90s really took off along both coasts of the US. In Canada, the Lower Mainland, we have 3 other co-housing communities, including Vancouver Co-housing's community that's underway on East 33rd. My own story of co-housing and my interest in it kind of was sparked when my husband and I moved to Vancouver in 2011. At the time, we were living in Ottawa, and in Ottawa, we were kind of just young professionals poised to buy into a not overheated housing market. Came to Vancouver and we're like, wow, not only can we not afford anything here, what we could afford would not fit the kind of life that we knew we would be having. So I have a 3-year-old now, another baby on the way, and we just couldn't buy something that matched our life. And it wouldn't cost, $600,000 or more. So in Vancouver, $600,000 in East Vancouver will buy you a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom condo with a microscopic living room, dining room that are conjoined in an open concept that has room for either a dining room or a living room, and a second bathroom you probably don't need except when 2 members of your family are puking at the same time. Recently been there, so. A group of us kind of got together in 2012 in the spring and said, okay, we're all aligned on this idea of what's already out there is not meeting our housing needs, so how could we build something? And co-housing came to the fore as an idea that really made sense to a small group of us. There was initially a large group of 100 people that came together at the Wise Hall on Commercial Drive in, I think, February or March of 2012. And from that group, there was about 8 households that sort of came to the fore and said, okay, let's do this. And we aligned around a loose vision of co-housing, common amenities that would support our life together, and 3 pieces of property, which, as you can imagine, in Vancouver, finding land that's appropriate can be a real issue, both in terms of the vision, where is that land? Vancouver's a city of neighborhoods. People have very strong preferences about the where of their homes, as well as costs. So figuring out how to get those lands together in a way that was initially affordable without having them rezoned. So we aligned on these 3 lots, and then as a community kind of started building a larger group of people aligned around this common vision. We quickly hired an architect to help us do our design. So one of the first pieces there, we did the design of our common house. The idea being, once you know what's in the common house, suddenly maybe what you need in your private house changes. You thought you needed an office, but we're actually building an office in the common house, so maybe you don't need an office. We're building 2 guest rooms, so maybe you don't need a den/guest room in your own home. Things like that made it possible for people to see the kinds of spaces they actually needed in their own private homes. So when we moved to designing our private homes, we were finding that our private homes were actually, on an average per square foot basis, much smaller than homes that are offered on the market. But of course, they have access to over 6,000 square feet of common amenity area. So I'm moving into an 850 square foot 2-bedroom unit. The second bedroom, which technically is called the master bedroom, but which my son and my future child will occupy together, is large enough for bunk beds in multiple configurations. This is the beauty of architects and urban planners and designers, right, who can look at a 12 by 12 foot square and actually think about how high to put the window so you can put the bunk beds on all 3 walls, right? That's design. So we took our project through the design, consultation, internal and external, rezone, and then hopefully finishing the building and moving in later this month. And I think in terms of lessons for this community, one of the greatest things we've done together as a community is made all of our decisions by consensus. So we use a card process, red, green, yellow, to indicate consensus. And we have 45 adults and 18 children. When you're a child who's about 10 or 12 and indicating an interest, you can get your own set of cards as well. So it's a very inclusive process, but it's challenging, and it sometimes takes longer than if we just voted. At the same time, I think we come out with some much better decisions because we go through this process. We have a picture of what it looks like, and it looks like a funnel. So you have all these ideas, all these thoughts, criticisms, critiques of different ideas that are coming out at the beginning, and it starts to feel very confusing. And then as you move through, we talk about asking clarifying questions. So rather than attacking ideas or attacking individuals, we start to ask questions, and often find that an idea I'm expressing is maybe the same as an idea you're expressing. We're talking about it in different ways. And so clarifying ultimately kind of refines that until we often get to a point where we have a very clear decision and we call for cards. It sounds really simple. It does take a while, and there are, of course, controversial things along the way. Things like, how big do you build the Great Hall? How many common meals or parties are we going to have together? How many people are going to come to them? How much surge capacity do you want? How big's the kids' room? Those are some of the design ones, and some of the more policy ones are things like, what do we do about smoking? Is smoking allowed? Is it allowed in your home, not in your home? What about pot? Is pot different? What about vaping? Is vaping different? What limits do we set on those things? what about all the kids? We had people who would really prefer to have lived in seniors co-housing, but we're the only thing going and they prefer co-housing over no co-housing. So what do we do about kids' noise? Are there noise-free zones where kids can't go? Decisions like that are complicated, and they require an intentionality to move through that decision process. So we've come up with a saying along the way, which I'll leave you with, which is most of the people get most of what they want most of the time.
Great. That's a very cool idea. I'll be speaking next. So, yeah, I just like co-housing because then I can cook less is I think one of the answers. So, yes, Elvy is working with Vancity Credit Union. He's going to talk about his work.
Yeah, I'll try and do it without the mic, since somebody made that reference to my former theater career. So theoretically, I should still be able to hit the back wall. I don't talk about that too much anymore. I was kind of interested in this idea of talking about community and realized, well, what exactly does that mean? I think I know what that means, and so but I wasn't sure. I went looking for, I thought a good source to go would be John Helliwell, who, amongst his various titles, is Professor Emeritus of Economics here at UBC. He's been doing a lot of interesting work around the economics of happiness and well-being. And Helliwell's definition of community is connection. And that was the one word and the only word that he wanted to use for it. Okay, that's interesting, but I suppose everybody wearing the same kind of sports jersey on a particular game night is a form of connection, but I don't think that's exactly what the good professor was talking about. He defined it as community as something that is active. It comes from forging strong connections, from people doing things together for themselves and others, people doing things together with a purpose, right? And this is where I want to talk to you about the cooperative model. If you turn your mind back to the mid-1800s, in industrializing England, in Rochdale, which is now a bedroom community of Manchester, so right at the epicenter of the Industrial Revolution in the UK. And there's a bunch of industrial weavers there who all have jobs, they're working in factories, but they're all obliged to buy from the company store. The company store is putting sawdust into the flour, it's putting chalk into the oatmeal, I don't know, they're doing all kinds of terrible things, rocks in there with the coal, and they're charging you exorbitant amounts of money for this, and they're extending you credit so that you can perpetuate a cycle of poverty as you make yourself sick eating these things that you shouldn't be eating. But that's okay, because it's profitable, and that's the new mantra, we should all be profitable. Well, 28 industrial weavers get together and say, we've had enough of this, we're going to create our own store with the objective of providing the highest quality goods possible for the lowest price possible for our members, those who have a vested interest in the business because they have contributed their own capital. So these people scrimped and saved, they pulled together £1 each, that was the price of admission. It took a while for them to scrape that together. But then they opened up a store, which was 2 barrels and a plank and a scale, right? And they offer wheat, oatmeal, flour, oatmeal, sugar, butter, candles. This catches on. Pretty soon they're offering tobacco, tea, and within 30 years there's 1,000 of these cooperatives across the UK, and they're feeding half the country. The model starts to spread to Europe, to North America, and it takes on all kinds of other forms. This is the cooperative that we're talking about. An autonomous association of persons united voluntarily to meet their common economic, social, and cultural needs and aspirations through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. Cooperatives are communities of people with common needs who have created a legal enterprise, a business, that's geared to meeting those needs. They work within the market, they work within the economy, but they have perverted the market rationale of profit for profit's sake. Rather than having people work in service of capital, they're putting capital in the service of people. A very interesting kind of shift. Now, you should keep in mind that this is the only form of business that is informed by a set of principles originating with those Rochdale pioneers, subsequently evolving. But there's an international organization, the International Cooperative Alliance, which has modernized these 7 principles, and all cooperatives on the planet, of which there are tens of thousands, are expected to adhere to these rules, defining democracy, economic participation, autonomy, concern for community, education. This is not just an economic model, this is a social model geared towards meeting people's needs. It's a little, I have to say this because we're at UBC, it's a little too exotic for the Sauder School of Business. It doesn't like to teach this model yet, but we're working on that. This is a model that is about local economy. It's about serving local needs. It's about providing for people's local needs. There are no shareholders. There are no, the money from the cooperative is not going to an account in the Grand Cayman Islands. It's going to serve the needs of people locally. There have been a number of studies that have been done around cooperatives, and we're waiting for the ones that have come out since the crisis, prior to the crisis. The models all showed, except 3 of these done in Canada, that cooperatives are twice as likely to survive their first 5 years of existence than other forms of business, and that proportion holds true after 10 years. It's always tough to start a business, but cooperatives seem to do better that way. Now, there's no cookie cutter for cooperatives. I can't tell you what a particular cooperative looks like. The joke in cooperative circles is that when you've met one co-op, you've met one co-op. These are businesses that are tailored to the needs, the specific needs of people, and so they manifest themselves in a variety of ways, but just a few of them. I mean, if you have a particular need, you need access to high quality and affordable goods. In Vancouver, you might go to the East End Food Co-op. You might rent a tool from the Vancouver Tool Library so you don't have to own your own tools. You might go to Mountain Equipment Co-op to get goods. Housing, of course, there's cooperative housing. There are 15,000 units of cooperative housing in British Columbia. Co-housing, of course, I think co-housing is taking cooperative housing to the next stage. It's like cooperative housing on steroids or something. Even beyond it, co-housing is cooperation for people who are not cooperative enough, I think. For transportation, you don't need to own a vehicle. You become a member of Moto. For employment, you can join a workers' cooperative, like Victory Gardens or the Woodshop or 15 others that I know in the immediate Lower Mainland. These people are not waiting for jobs to come their way. These are people who are getting together and creating their own employment. And if you need financial services, you can go to a credit union. This is where I'm going to plug Vancity. We are the largest financial cooperative or credit union in the country. We started in 1946, 70 years ago, with 14 people pooling $5 each. That's $95. We have over 500,000 members and $18.5 billion in assets. Our bylaws require us to return a third of our net profits back to community every year. Some of that goes as grants. We're not a granting organization. A lot of that goes into creative lending, patient capital, and other kinds of instruments so that we can help businesses thrive, including other co-ops. Why do we do that? Because Principle 7 of the Rochdale Principles is concern for community, and we are concerned for community. Our vision is to redefine wealth to further the financial, social, and environmental well-being of our members and their communities. We're trying to ramp that up and see what more we can do that way. So before we get to the next part, I'll conclude with this. What do you need? What does your community need? There might be a co-op that can provide that. Thanks.
Great. So I'm going to explain kind of the layout for the next hour and a bit that we have together. I'm going to ask the panelists each to go to one of these tables that we have. They're going to be rotating through each group throughout the night, so you'll have a chance to hear from each of them and hear about their expertise. In the short bit, Marie's going to be introducing kind of our get to know you, get to know your neighbors session, and if you like, you can grab some food. And then after 5 to 10 minutes, we're going to come back and introduce the main activity, which is about designing ways to make our communities more connected.
So we'll have one of the panelists join you at each of the tables. But in the next activity, you're going to notice that next to the place card, there's these little tiny cards. So if you can pick one and they're each going to have sort of like an emotion related to them. So the activities that, for example, let's say you pick out happiness. So you're going to tell your neighbor a story about happiness that took place in your neighborhood or somewhere in the city. So it's kind of like a get to know your neighbor. And if we can get the